Hello, my name is Yoshi Bauer. Welcome to the My Special Needs Connection webinar and podcast series. As a parent of children with special needs and as a professional advocate, I understand the challenge of connecting parents and professionals with the information that they need to serve children and adults with special needs. At My Special Needs Connection, we empower parents and professionals through valuable instruction and insights of experts in the special needs community. We're excited to come alongside you to provide you with information that you need. Let's grow through the exchange of knowledge and the hope of success. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel for new releases. Please enjoy our webinars and podcasts.
Today, we are here with Carolyn Saunders. This is the My Special Needs Connection podcast series, and we're happy to have Carolyn with us today to give you parents and professionals some information that I think is going to be very helpful. Carolyn is a BCBA and a clinical director at Gateway Learning Group. So I think we'll just start, Carolyn, by if you could just introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background and how you help children with special needs.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me. I wanted to start by my transition into the field actually began. I received my undergrad from out in Illinois, and it's actually in special education. And so I began my career in the classroom. And so really working with those individuals who were needing some more academic and life skills support in the classroom, started with more of a middle school age, but I really found that interest within high school and that transition age. And so I really appreciate the need for learning and really individualizing programs in order to really grow skills, so that way anybody can be successful and just within their adult age as they grow older.
I like that word, individualized. I think that's something that's so important. I've actually given a webinar on that, and I like that term because that's really what's required, and that's how the student really can benefit from any programming.
Absolutely, and not only is it important for that individual to grow, but be able to tailor on what is going to be most valuable for that person to learn, and knowing the tools and strategies that are going to be effective for that person. So I found as I enjoyed the classroom, there was so much more than the classroom. And so I did go back and get a master's degree in vocational rehabilitation counseling, and found myself working with adults and really kind of practicing what I was preaching of those life skills, and being able to live independently, or as independent as possible. And again, continuing to individualize those programs. But it was later that I found ABA, and that was not something, even though I had been working in schools and in the community, that it took me a little bit of time to really find applied behavior analysis. And kind of through along the path, I was able to find Gateway, and I'm very happy to have making a home there. So I do work for Gateway Learning Group, and they are a provider of autism behavioral intervention services. We're in Northern and Southern California. Happy to say we've moved out to Denver, as well as Portland as well. So growing, being able to grow the very important work that Gateway is doing.
Great, that's wonderful. Can I just ask you a question for parents that may not know what ABA is? Could you just give kind of a quick overview of what that term means and how it helps children?
Sure. So ABA is applied behavior analysis. It's from a field of behavioral sciences. The important part about that is that it's evidence-based treatment Oftentimes for autism spectrum disorders, but it doesn't have to be. It also is proven to be effective with individuals with Down syndrome, traumatic brain injury, along with some other diagnoses as well.
You're going to be talking about teaching routines to your child and breaking down routines so they can gain independence. So we'd love to hear from you on that issue.
Sure. So really, I could argue now more than ever, parents are really exploring and needing to find ways to help their child as we navigate current waters. So, we find right now that, our children or teenagers, adults, doesn't have to be just children, are home. And parents are often having to be guidance counselors, disciplinarians, parents, teachers. They're finding themselves in a lot of different roles. The list really keeps going. So there's many different areas within routines, and in ways that that I could offer guidance as far as what to do right now in the current setting that we're in. But something is really establishing routines and independence. I think that is really most important and things to consider during this time. I think in my own life, how important routines are. I'm sure, Thomas, you might also value that consistency of routine. I'm sure many of the parents that are listening came thinking about a routine, getting up, whether it's going to work or preparing the day for their child to kind of go through the activities that they might typically have gone through, what Monday looks like and Tuesday and so on. We really count on that and how valuable that is. So for many children, it's no different, and that those routines can be particularly important and really can be critical. Research shows that when children learn independence early on, their potential to thrive later in life increases. But when children with special needs oftentimes will require more focus and more help on learning those living skills than potentially typically developing peers. It might be practice that they're needing to practice a skill over and over again. And that does take a lot of dedication by either the teacher or the therapist, the parent, especially as we're talking about routines, how much of that can fall on the parent.
Especially, I imagine, at this time period with the school closures and due to COVID, a lot more, I'm sure, falls on the plate of the parents. Do you or your company do, parent training? I mean, guidance for the parents on how to work with their child in the home setting during this distance learning?
Absolutely. And so Gateway does continue to offer essential in-home ABA treatment services during COVID right now, and especially as as students have been out of school, and now as we are going into the summer break, even some of those online platforms that students have been utilizing are now that we're in break. So yes, we have implemented health and safety practices to keep our clients safe. And so we are going into homes that is available, but we also recognize that solution might not be available or might not be accessible for everybody or willing to do that. So we are offering, we are doing parent training, both through telehealth, and we are doing it through direct services with our behavior technicians as they're working with the clients for those families that are interested in having us in home and are willing to do so. We are involving the parent as much as possible. And so talking about routines and talking about practicing these daily living skills really for that behavior technician, which is that individual that is going in and really working on these interventions and these strategies in order to really focus on that independence, and what's socially significant to that individual. Our goal is to really involve the parent as much as possible. So what we want to see is for these skills to transfer to the parent and to really encourage the parent to be able to step in and really learn these tools so they can help their child become more independent and be able to do some of these daily routines steps on their own.
Great. That's wonderful. Would you be able to just give us, maybe some examples of how you work with children, you work with the parents, just an example of a child, let's say, that has autism or has social needs? And I know obviously all children are different, but just so the parents listening could have a little clearer idea of how this works, for example, in the home setting, what kind of routines you might establish, or whether you do any kind of assessments to determine what the child's needs are, or how you get information about that, just so they have a little more concrete information about what your services actually involve.
Yes, and such an important question. As I was getting ready for today, I had found something by Green and Carter in 2014 that I wanted to share and then break that down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just to read it, it's that children's ability to perform daily living skills is likely a combination of their ability to understand what's being asked of them, their ability to understand and perform the task, their ability, desire to complete with to comply with parental requests, and parental expectations regarding routines, performance of daily living skills. So I wanted to break this down a little bit further because there's so much involved when we are talking about routines, which is it can be a big topic, if you think about it as an umbrella, there's so many things that really fall within routines. As a parent that might be listening to this, will thinking, well, it can be too much. So breaking this down a little bit. So understand what is even being asked of that child, that individual. So something that within ABA that we look at as we are either working with a client in home, or as we are providing some guidance via telehealth right now, is does that child have the language to understand what's being asked of them? So if we say, go upstairs, go get dressed, make sure you brush your teeth and come down so we can have lunch, is that language that's being asked, is that language clear to that individual? And then understand and perform the task. So I think we want to think about things that, are they physically, do they have the skills to complete these tasks independently? I think about, for example, get dressed and, come downstairs for lunch. Do they have the physical skills to be able to take their shirt off? Are there prerequisites that we need to work on? And so that's something within ABA, and something that at Gateway that we can break this down and take a look at of these tasks that we are asking of these individuals. Are there prerequisite skills? Are there skills that we need to address and work on for them to be able to be successful? Do they have all the gross and fine motor skills needed to complete this task? Oftentimes we can really work within that natural environment on building those gross and fine motor skills. So not necessarily just thinking about, can they throw a ball, catch a ball, can they write their name? We want to think about what are all of the different mechanics that we use day in and day out that would be required in order to complete different things within their daily living. And then do they know all the steps and to complete them in order? So they know, I need to get dressed. I know I need a shirt. I know I need new underwear and new pants. But what are the steps? I see these materials in front of me, but how do I get them on myself? First, I have to take off my clothes, so on and so forth. So again, breaking that down and really being able to understand what comes first. A really big part of this as well is the desire to comply with those requests that are being asked of them.
How do you build desire? I've heard that before, that there has to be some motivation on
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
child's part. So how do you build motivation, and how do you encourage, parents, for example, to use that motivation to have their child comply with those tasks?
That really is, it can be the key, is that motivation, and really finding what is going to, why should this individual do this? If Are they going to be at home all day and playing with mom and dad and their toys, their dog, and what do they see a purpose in getting dressed? Is this valuable for them? What's in it for them? Why is this important? Sometimes it can be natural. Okay, well, let's put your play clothes on so that way we can go outside and go play on the scooter, which is, maybe their most favorite activity. But first we need to get dressed to do that. So you've got that motivation there of, okay, if you're telling me I can go on the scooter, I'm going to be very motivated to get dressed. Um, Sometimes it might not be as natural, where it might be, okay, first we're going to get dressed and then we can work for maybe watching um, a show, or being able to do a particular puzzle, something that might not be as natural, and it might need to be um, uh, uh, stated before. So first, what we call pre-MAC principle, using that first language, first then language. So, first time to get dressed, and then we can earn this. So that's
Right.
something within, again, within ABA, that, and comes through parent training, that we can work on, and really encouraging families to use these strategies that can be very effective.
Right. Is that kind of true with academic tasks, for example? I mean, a lot of kids right now obviously are doing Zoom for instruction, and they're learning. Um, and I'm sure some children are more motivated for that type of learning than others. But um, have you heard that's kind of a challenge for some of the clients that you serve? That the motivation for accessing this distance learning model?
Absolutely. And so that motivation is something that we really want to look at and see what might be motivating for their sibling, or motivating for mom and dad, might not be motivating for that individual. For something that might be not as preferred, or something that typically we might see problem behavior, or we might see the child really just escaping that task as much as possible, or even just being able to have a child sit at a table and have with the screen open for 30 seconds might be something that we need to work on. And so really looking and exploring those interests, and for many of those listening, we know that what works today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work tomorrow. So really continuing to explore that. We use something called preference assessments, which means we're really always assessing what is going to be motivating for
Right,
a child.
sure. Do
Mhm.
do you, without naming names, obviously, but do you have any examples, of you or your teammates, working with a parent and trying to get the child motivated for distance learning? I mean, maybe some of the actual motivating factors you all might have implemented.
Yeah, there's one that really is coming to mind right now. I've been thinking about a family who's been just very involved within ABA. There's been a lot of collaboration. It really is not just the work of the parent. It's not just the work of the BCBA or the behavior technician, or really that team. It's that team effort coming together, that a parent had created a wheel, and so a wheel of different things, that like a spinning wheel of choices. And so that when they meet certain parts of they're successful with certain parts of their day, they get a token, and then they get to spin the wheel. And certain examples
Uh,
would be things like 10 extra minutes to stay up at night, a free pass from doing chores. So I thought that was a very creative way to, because as we know, we have to keep things fresh. I'm a parent myself, and so we're really trying to kind of keep new ideas. That was, I thought, a wonderful way of being able to, that it's not parents saying, okay, well today you can work for 10 minutes of staying up, or today you don't have to do your chores. It's the wheel that gets to tell, and it really created a new sense of excitement. And so now that individual is really working hard at getting those tokens to spin the wheel to see what he'll be able to earn at the end of the day. So
That's a great suggestion. I mean,
well,
don't we all like to spin the wheel and see
exactly.
what kind of goodies we can get?
Exactly. And so that's just one example of, some creativity on the parent. But, I see just across the board, as I've been working with families during this time, that it, parents don't have to come up with these things on their own. There are resources that are available to be able to work together, again, through, for example, ABA, working with your BCBA and your team members, to be able to come up with some of these ideas.
That's great. That's a great suggestion. One of the questions that I think our listeners might have is, what are some of the most important things a parent, um, of a child with special needs should know in regards to your field?
I think that there are strategies that are out there that are available in order to help. So if a parent is kind of feeling that, hey, this is really tough, I need some assistance, I need some support, there's help out there, and it can be individualized for what it is that they need. um, it really would be to ask those questions. So, for example, if a parent just doesn't really know about, how can somebody even help me right now? There are, for example, Gateway, we are offering free 30-minute consultation with a regional director, just for that a parent to speak to somebody to say, hey, these are things that I am experiencing. Is ABA even right for my family or for my child? Is this something that we could possibly, that you could possibly help with? So there are, for example, Gateway, we can offer that consultation to even have those discussions of, really kind of helping to know what are those next steps. I would also want parents to know that there are different models out there. So, for example, two of the ones that we've really been talking about are direct therapy programs, and parent training models. The direct therapy really involves intensive short-term programs that focus on developing a specific skill, such as initiating peer interactions, as we're talking about routines, and independent daily living skills. Also working on longer term programs that address multiple areas, as we were talking about, thinking about a routine. It involves being able to have that language to understand what's being asked, having those gross and fine motor skills. Maybe it is even working on that motivation and more of that behavioral intervention, or reducing some of those problem behaviors that are impeding the ability for the child to even work on some of those skills. I think about, for example, the online, school platforms, can be effective, but thinking about a child who, we're working on just being able to bring to the table to be able to access that, it might be a skill that we need to work on. So those direct programs involved initial assessments of child's needs. Individualization has definitely been a word we've been using today. So we really want to individualize and really look at assessing those child's needs, and seeing what are those areas, what are those things that they do really well, and what are some of those areas that we could work on addressing.
Great. Well, it it looks like schools will open in the fall. We don't know exactly how much they're going to be open, if there's going to be kind of a school-based program and combined with a distance learning program. But can you, since a lot of the parents listening probably have children that are on IEPs,
Sure.
how do your services help those children in the school setting? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Well, so let's assume they're in school. Let's assume they're back in school.
Yes. And that, so as far as ABA and Gateway, I can speak about specifically, we do offer, we provide services not only in the home and in the community as we, really look at social interactions and how to improve those social skills, but also within the schools. So that is something that Gateway is very familiar with, as we do across many of our regions, is working in those school districts and with those individuals, and understanding and knowing that, as we do go back and transition, and we will be in school, whether it might be, from the first day school starts, or it might be, later on, knowing that it's going to be a transition. And that really kind of goes to speak of that topic of today is routines, and, thinking about how can we individualize it for that child that we are supporting in the school and in the school setting. So, what it might be, looking at motivation, what's going to be motivating for that child to return back, how what's the schedule going to be like. We've been out of school for, it will be for a period of time now. Sometimes getting back into that routine is going to take a little bit of an adjustment. So the important piece is really kind of breaking it down and understanding what tools are necessary to be able to help that individual in the classroom and be successful, but allowing them to be there is with as much independence as possible. So what I say is we always want to work ourselves out of a job, and so we don't want to be in that classroom for any longer than would be necessary. So even from that first day that we go back, how can we transfer that success for the client, or really support that teacher? So as we've been talking about parent training and parent education, how can we also provide that support to the teacher so that can transfer to that educator as we're feeding ourselves out?
Right, because I've heard the term like generalization across environments. So I assume it's important to kind of keep that consistency um, with school and at home, so the child knows what to expect, what the routines are, and how to navigate both in the school setting, but also in the home setting.
Absolutely. And keeping those, whatever we can, consistent, can keep that consistent. So if there are supports that are working at home, really encouraging the family to communicate with the teacher. These are some things that are working. This is how we are motivating my learner at home, and this is a way that we can transition back into the classroom. The biggest thing I can say is really looking and seeing what's that child's talents, what are those things that they're good at, and what are those areas of growth that they are developing at home, and how can we transfer that to the school setting? What are those areas that we're still working on, and how can we identify those and support that child in the classroom?
That's a great point. I think it's also probably going to be a challenge for many parents who have children that have difficulty transitioning. They've been home now for
Mm.
months and months, and that's going to be, for some children, challenging, I think, to go back to the school setting. It's out of their routine. So do you have any suggestions or strategies for parents to try to make that as easy as possible?
Absolutely. I was just having this conversation with a parent less than 24 hours ago, as this parent is getting ready for their child to enter back into a preschool setting to that they know is coming up within the next 2 weeks. One of the things that we really talked about, especially in the subject of routine, is to take a look and see what are going to be those expectations of that child. It's, maybe we all think about what 6 months ago, what time were we waking up in the morning? What time were we having lunch? What time were we working on certain tasks? And what has that morphed into? What does that look like now? Is it the same routine or is it different? So as some of our discussions had been had, is that was something that we needed to take a look at. The expectation is that this particular child was going to, there's a nap time, and the expectation is that they were going to have to, if they're not sleeping, stay in an area and stay, quiet, so that way other kids could sleep. And so that meant even changing the going to bed routine, the waking up routine, breakfast, all sorts of things. So one of some of the discussions there was, not waiting to just 2 days before school is going to start again, but really looking at this, from 2 weeks out and saying, how can we start making these modifications now? So that way, by the time we get to school, they really are practicing, they've practiced that routine for the last, week and a half in order to prepare. So we've started out, we're shaping it. We've started out by just doing time intervals and kind of practicing of what that would look like with the nighttime routine and such. And as we get closer, then it will be things like circle times at creating some visual supports. It's something that we haven't talked about yet. But what about the environment can we support and provide as visual cues to the child to let them know what is coming up next? So that's something that I've talked with the parent about, is kind of keeping that routine, so that way when that first day back happens, it's going to be as smooth as the parent could really make that, because of all the preparation that they've done.
Those are wonderful suggestions. I think that's really important. As you mentioned, it's going to be difficult to just up and take them to school one day without preparing them and understanding what the transition means and how to best help the child understand the change that's coming and make it as smooth and easy as possible.
Absolutely. And I would just want to, for all of us, that, when we're on if you can think back to when you were, going back into school, summer vacation, or going back into home, or, going back to, first day of classes for college, or, maybe if you're a teacher listening to this, you're also having your first day back, or if you take a vacation, an extended vacation, and you're going back. There is a change of routine that we have to get used to. Something to keep in mind, that for those children with special needs that are potentially on the spectrum, whatever that case is, it can be a little bit more difficult for that routine to get back going again. And so what ABA really can help with is identifying those things, those strategies, and those programs that can really help to make that transition go a little bit more smoothly for that child.
Wonderful. Well, these have been really, really great suggestions. Thank you for enlightening us on those issues. I would like to kind of close with, if you would be willing to sort of share a story of triumph, over a child's difficulties from one of your clients that really impacted you.
Sure. There's one that's really coming to mind right now. Somebody who has an individual who's actually within those teenage years, and has accessed ABA for some time now, and a lot of these things that we've worked on, a lot of those things that we've talked about today, such as being able to know what's going to be motivating. The parent training part has been very effective, and I see a lot of those strategies parents are using with that child, and different types of programming that we've used for this individual. Since COVID has occurred, that I'm seeing so much of the individualization of this for this person being able to use these strategies, and I'm seeing self-monitoring happening. So I'm seeing somebody who is moving from that traditional school system, what we're all used to, and moving to that online platform, setting up their own schedule for the day, monitoring to make sure, okay, I've done the work that I've needed to do at by 10 o'clock or by noon. And then also when having questions, being able to advocate for himself. So being able to send emails to teachers, being able to ask for assistance, being able to talk to his parents and let him know, I don't understand this. One of the things that we've been working on is self-regulation and being able to understand his own emotions and being able to deal with those emotions, especially during this time now, where it can create some anxiety. What are the steps needed in order to really stay on track and to use those language skills to communicate what's necessary, decision making, perspective taking, all of these things that all of these skills that we've worked on at different parts of his ABA life, and now is I'm seeing going back to bringing it back to schedules as well as the daily routines is really thriving in these online platforms with school, and ended up receiving the best grades that he's ever received, because he's being able to put these skills that he's been working on for so long into practice, which has he's reported has been motivating to him. So all of these things that we've talked about, it took a lot of work. It took dedication from the parents, but I feel so much success that has come from that. So I know that that's been really motivating for myself as a BCBA, and really, being able to come here today and saying that it can be so effective, and really that there are people that are able to help.
That's wonderful. Isn't it great to be in a field where you can make a lifetime of difference in a person's life?
Absolutely. And it
That's
might not come, we might not be able to see that change every single day, but when we stop and take a step back and look and see, okay, what happened over the last month, maybe the last 6 weeks, the last year, we see so much growth and independence, which is ultimately, we want our children to grow and develop, and to be as independent as they can.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us, Carolyn. I know it was really enlightening to me, and I'm sure it was very enlightening to parents that are going to be listening to this, even other professionals. And again, thank you for sharing your expertise with us and leaving on an encouraging note. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.